I am pretty certain it's a pretty big known fact that people will not sit here and just join the anime community, take it for what it is, and then just value it for what it is, right? We're pretty much very much in a science college level of an idea that we're just like, yeah, pretty much it doesn't take a super genius to figure out that, yeah, people on the western side is not going to necessarily accept anime for what it is. And let's just be honest, this ain't nothing new. This is something that people have talked about for a millennia now when it comes down to it. Hell, even before we even got to this point in the timeline of where we are now, there's been people that always talk about this type of shit just constantly, right? Actually, the reason why I'll even say I'm talking about this now is because I was watching a video by Monte Sensei, and essentially I was basically kind of like, yeah, no, I absolutely agree. I do absolutely get what's going on here, you know, because people always make up tons of excuses as to why they can't necessarily like anime or why they can't necessarily like a certain character or whatever the hell is going on, and they'll come up with 5 million excuses before they actually accept that they either don't like the show or they actually do, but they keep it hidden. Actually, I want an anime with a strong female character. I mean, cool, here's Madaka. I mean, actually, I want one that is not necessarily a shonen woman, right? Cool, here's Ryoko. Well, I don't want her to be, you know, to be all sex appeal and stuff like that. I don't like that whatsoever. Cool, here's Conan from Naruto. Well, see, that's how they gonna sound. That's how they gonna sound. They're gonna turn to absolute eggs and just start cracking themselves. That's literally the sound effect that they'll make, right? They just make up literally any excuse on the planet just to make sure that they don't necessarily like anything of what's going on. They'll do all the excuses on the planet and just make all the excuses for why they don't watch the show instead of watching the damn show and just accepting it for what it is. That is a huge ass problem that not only plagues anime but plagues just things in general, and it's just very much annoying. Like, they'll come up with so many different reasons, and then ultimately they'll be like, you know what, I didn't even watch the show, I don't even care about the show like that. And they got me like,
miss me with the bullshit.
Are you serious? Are you actually serious? There's no real deal way that you just wasted my time asking all these questions just for you to be on some nonsense. It is very strange. That's also the reason why I was talking about, like, yesterday about making a lewd or NSFW fighting game, or just game in general, and see if it could sell. Because honestly, with how people kinda are these days, at least in the Western market, it seems like it'll be hell, right? Like, yes, obviously you're gonna have people like myself that's obviously gonna be very much for it, very much down to buy certain things like that. But when it comes down to the ultimate of can you actually do this, it seems like it's actually gonna be a lot more trouble than it's worth, and it doesn't really feel like it's, you know, valid to do at the times. But also, if you let that sort of thing go, then it's like you're just giving in to more of the more boring, mediocre nonsense stuff that we kind of currently deal with. Again, this is why you see people in these other Eastern countries come through, make games, and actually sell them well, because they're not doing the same BS as, you know, a lot of the Western people are. Yes, there is problems with their stories and whatever, but ultimately, at least it's not necessarily hitting the same BS that has been constantly been acting like, oh, it's a giant problem, and we never had this, when we did have it. You know, we had it a lot of the damn time. We just never really went back to it for some reason. We just left that shit, and it's like, holy hell, would I be so desperately happy to go back to those old days. Remember Raven from Teen Titans? Remember how fine she was? Remember how much effort they put into her character without even thinking about it for 5 seconds? That's what I miss. That's what I miss out of these, you know, very good writings of these stories and whatever. Why did everything turn into Steven Universe writing? Why did everything turn into that sort of writing, where now it's just like, you know, obviously every story feels the same, or you could tell what's going to happen in the story? Like Dispatch, for some reason, right? I'm pretty sure you guys have seen or, you know, heard of that game, which, you know, is kind of damn funny if I'm gonna be honest. But when it comes down to it though, I can pretty much take a guess of what's gonna happen. Oh, phenomenal guy, the superhero, is gonna be like this really evil asshole person, or either A, he's gonna work with somebody that's way bigger a boss than he is and maybe works for Shroud, or B, he's gonna be basically some evil asshole guy. We end up getting with, the blonde chick in the end in some shape and form. Or something of the sort similar kind of happens to that sort of narrative, right? It's probably gonna lead into something like that. Most likely. I don't see how it wouldn't. Because that's literally how a lot of these writings, how a lot of these stories are typically done and how they usually go down. But you know what? Most Western people will give it a pass because it is something that they have heard before, and that's something that they don't want to necessarily challenge. I feel like Western people, when it comes down to things of fiction, is basically in a place where they don't want to challenge the narrative, challenge the innovation of what can actually be done. And when they see things of Japan's side, when it comes to anime and just whatever else is out there just on the eastern side, they get scared because they don't necessarily know what the hell is happening. And when they get introduced to concepts that obviously would never work in a Western sort of story, or get introduced to things that isn't so Western, they end up just straight up crashing out. They end up tweaking. They're on the floor having a whole ass seizure while their names being screamed Alberto Del Rio in the weirdest, craziest, high-pitched Mexican voice that you can find. And that is just how it is for these people. And then when you call stuff out like this, it just be like, oh, now everybody essentially wanted to be on your ass for calling this sort of thing out, right? Plenty of times, I have seen plenty of content creators and just people in general just being called out because they point out the obvious, point out the actual problems that is plaguing the anime space, or just really things that has the anime aesthetic. Lots of people genuinely, what it seems like, it feels like a lot of people just do not care for the anime aesthetic whatsoever and will accept anything that is realistic or using realism in some shape or form. And it's not very good. Obviously, not every single video game needs to have that, but it kind of leans into just what Western people really want more than anything. At least the vast good amounts of people that's on that damn side when it comes down to it. Because not every Westerner wants that type of shit. I sure as hell don't want that type of shit. And that's just ultimately how it is. But if we really think about this for more than 5 seconds at a time, this has kind of always been an issue within the anime space, just in general, right? Where people will come in and then try to dictate what actually goes on in these shows, or try to dictate what's actually popping off, right? It didn't start out like this, but it's always been there. There's always been signs of it being there, even in the olden days of the 90s and whatever, right? No one really gave it their all when it came down to voice acting a lot of these different works and whatever. They didn't really give it their all whatsoever. They just basically kind of was just like, yeah, we'll just voice whatever overseas show or movie or whatever, and then we'll give it like the most whatever performance that we possibly can. That's with old martial arts movies, that's been with old anime, that's with old stories and shows and movies from just around the world that we kind of basically had, but no one really took serious into voicing until way later, where they're like, oh yeah, we'll now actually do that, and now we're the big shots of voice acting, and now we're going to screw over basically everybody that comes through and try to make them conform into our weird cult of voice acting, even though it should be the opposite way around, where instead of voice actors actually having like this prestige and all this other nonsense when it comes down to it, if you're gonna have that prestige, you should very much be humble about it, being like at least like, yeah, this is an opportunity that I have gotten, and I am just having this permission to do this with the character, and that's just how it is, right? Most people don't do that. Most people are just assholes, and they just be on some weird type of something. Not every voice actor is like that, not every single English voice actor is like that, but there's a good amount of them that absolutely is like that. But then we go from voice acting, and then we go look at things like obviously the translations of subtitles, right? That's always been a problem when it comes down to it. Really more so, especially when Crunchyroll went legit and actually started becoming an actual anime streaming service site. When it comes down to it, there was always problems with the translation and how different things were actually put into the dubbing of each show, right? For the English side, there was always problems, even when it comes down to just down the voice delivery of certain things as well. It's always been problems, and that's why you got things like a screw up like High School DxD at times on the voicing side when it comes to it, right? Because there's been multiple times where Issei has called Rias when in the actual novel and whatever has been just straight up president. They have never done that. in the actual novel, but then you have like the actual show go ahead and be like, yeah, we're gonna just call him Rias in this whatever. And so when English speakers hear that for the first time, and they're like, wait, Issei called Rias before. Why is this happening now? Why is Rias tripping about this now? What's good here? And that's literally just like oh my gosh. So they effed that whole thing up essentially for years because they just didn't care to actually follow that. That's kind of wild, honestly. It's a little weird. And then do I need to even point out things like the skate anime where they had the whole weird dude with the non-binary bros or whatever, and do we need to really go down that whole tangent? It's just a whole bunch of nonsense when it comes down to it. It's been a long time, really, when it comes down to a lot of these people invading the hobby of anime, invading the hobby of games, and just things out there in general. And it's so nonsensical, right? The only good saving grace is not every single country is going to submit to something like this. At least like something like China, because damn well they're not going to submit to that at all. So that's something that we don't have to truthfully worry about. But there is still that element of what they can try to do without China looking, or at least any game company or animation coming out of China, they will definitely still screw it over in whatever way they can, right? But the whole dang point is that a lot of this has come up over the years and just culminated into where we are at now. Now it's not just anything to go on when it comes down to voice acting. It's not just the translators, it's activist groups, it's the government itself, it is credit card companies that try to screw people over even though they literally should not be in this conversation, but they are for some reason. It's literally random people online that basically think they know everything, or they know how things should be, and essentially they don't know what they're doing. It's literally the dumbass kids that be online. It's literally also the really weird adults that just don't have a life whatsoever, and it's also the really weird ass old people that don't understand anything except the old ways of things, and that's literally it. It is so many damn oppositions that is hoeing everything about our favorite hobbies and really things that we just enjoy in general. That was never truthfully a problem, right? And again, none of this shit was popping off back then. Back then we were just chilling. Back then it was maybe there, but it was never to this damn degree of where we are at now, where everybody has to self-censor, or it's going to a point where people need to basically struggle and just go figure out all these other things that was already back in the past and we had the answers to, but then it's like, nah, that don't exist. And it's like, what are we talking about? You had the keys to success when it comes to your shows, right? And then the moment something like Steven Universe come through, for some reason it felt like the entire narrative writing wise of shows and just things in general in the West just changed so abruptly. Even earlier than that, if I'm gonna be honest, things like Harvey Beaks kind of was in existence, and then things kind of felt like it was changing up at that point too. 2013 kind of felt like the massive changing point of a lot of different shows, at least for me. And when it comes down to it, it's just like, what happened? What caused things to kind of be that way? Right? It's just very much weird. Character design stopped being good. You got shows that obviously look like they're basically made in MS Paint. It's just very weird. It's a very weird time. And then when people want to go to anime and to escape all that nonsense, those very same people come through trying to use their own IPs to make anime out those and try to make the shows worse so they probably could try to hold the studios, whatever. Then you get people that basically are just hoeing it in general when it comes down to it, trying to get certain types of people off Twitter, directors that work on shows and whatever, just because they don't necessarily like certain things, which is why I'm not overly critical for people creating certain things, because I don't want to see that continue to go down the same path as we kind of always have seen. It's a tiring time. It is a tiring battle, and basically anybody that is like that, I do feel like you basically need to get your ass washed for 5 seconds. I do think you need to be washed for 5 seconds.
Hey, you stang asshole. Clean your ass.
The only beautiful thing about a lot of this stuff that's going down is that Japan is still Japaning at the end of the day, right? It may not be nearly as crazy as it used to be in the past, but they're still Japaning when it comes down to their, anime and stuff like that, right? You're still gonna see good products that come out when it comes down to these shows and the writing and what we basically, are going to see. I think Nukitashi is one of those good examples to show you that, yeah, the the light of the battle has not been lost yet. It is not fully dark out here like some black ass African country. It is not dark yet. It is still some good things that is out there, right? China is still very much helping, leading a charge of different, games that's coming out of there to show you what actual good games are actually like. Korea, South Korea more so, is also like that as well, right? The eastern side of the world and people that is rocking with the eastern side of creatives like stuff like that is very much, still fighting. They're still boxing. They're still ready to throw hands when it comes down to the elements of creativity. There will basically always be that side that is out there ready to oppose what the West is trying to do, whether it's a financial thing, whether it's trying to bring politics into things. No matter what it is, there will always be a boxing match, and the underdog is still always going to continue fighting, and that's just how it is. To be real, it's a tiring battle. It's a battle that should not have to be this way in any shape and form and just be dragged out all this long ways. But ultimately, it is a unfortunate battle that we have to kind of deal with. It is something that we just kind of, continue to box every single day when it comes down to it, because the moment we let that kind of go, or the moment we let censorship leak in or politics leak in to the hardest extent, and just basically anything and everything when it comes down to it, it's the moment things get silent, things don't get creative anymore, and things just basically go to absolute shit, right? Then we get people having those weird takes where it's like, certain elements of adult content shouldn't be in these stories, right? Even if it's for a serious reason, you shouldn't include those. But then it's like, when do you bring those up? When can we talk about certain situations that can't be talked about otherwise? That's the reason why fiction is so much needed. It's so much powerful at times, because ultimately, when you can't bring this sort of stuff in a realistic sort of sense, how else can you do so? Where else could you bring this up in any shape and form, and then everything will still be fine? How can you absolutely do that, right? And not every single damn show needs to be something realistic, or every single game needs to be realistic, or needs to be converted into realism, or it needs to be straight up like, changed up because you're here now. Like, that shouldn't be the damn case. Could you imagine a Guilty Gear being like a realistic ass game? I would slap the shit out you if I ever saw that. Like, I really would. I'm not even caring that hard about Guilty Gear, but I'll be damned if I want to see an ugly ass Ramlethal. I would beat your ass, high key. So that's just how I feel, right? So ultimately, I just straight up want to basically, again, express the absolute concern and the absolute, real deal riding power behind actually realizing that, yeah, things are kind of cooked, or at least been cooked for a long ass time, and we just don't have time to really let this shit rock at all. We just do not. And realistically, all this would basically go away if people were to do the smart thing and to ignore anime, ignore that they don't like the anime aesthetic, or just dip off and find something new and create their own thing. But the fact that literally everything has to be catered to everybody in every shape and form is so damn terrible, and it's so damn bad, right? Not everything needs to be catered to you. Like, every single YouTuber and channel don't need to be catered to you. There is plenty of things I've said on this channel that's for sure not catered to everybody, right? There is plenty of series I've started that's not catered to other people. JS64, have you seen it? It's definitely not catered to definitely everybody, right? It's just not how it is. None of the waifus on that show is catered to you when it comes down to it. Their backstories that is consistently about them being abused in some shape or form, for the most part, is not catered to you. It's for people that can actually handle those sort of stories, that people can handle, that sort of concept that can happen even in real life, but told into a fictional sort of sense, right? That's just how it is. So ultimately, again, it's just like, people in this world now has to be like, oh, we must be acceptable in all levels, but in reality, you will never be accepted in all levels, and that's perfectly fine. People just need to understand that it should not have to apply to everything, and realize that that is the truth of how things is. But yeah, it is definitely a tiring time. It is definitely an annoying time as well. And just to keep it very much a say, I would like to see something better actually happen, instead of just constantly going through this struggle of just like power of creativity over and over again, and let just people enjoy the shit that they want to enjoy, whether it's NSFW content or safe content or whatever the hell you want to do. Let people just enjoy the shit they want to enjoy, and I promise you the world will be at least 10% better by the time we're all done with this. So that's really, I guess, what I wanted to say for this one. Kind of went through a lot of different things, but still related to the same thing. So hopefully you did enjoy. If you did, be sure to like, share, subscribe, hit the bell notification on your way out. Also follow on socials, and if you like to on the channel, Kofi Cash is available as well. And I also put the Monty Sensei video on the description because, you know, definitely that was the reason why I wanted to do this whole topic in the first place. But yeah, that's all I gotta say. And until next time, boy Jay, signing off. Have a blessed day.